Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Lead Ministry Live and the Lead Volunteers podcast. My name is Josh Denhart. Super grateful that you're here. Our goal always is to help you, the ministry leader, number one, get organized. Number two, stop the revolving door of volunteers. And number three, we want to help you prevent burnout. And so we have a great episode today. Super excited about who we have on today. In addition, I want to let you know that we have recently transformed the Lead Ministry website. And instead of being an a la carte option, now it is a membership option. And so all of the courses all kind of brought together. I call it kind of an all-you-can-eat option. So definitely go check that out at leadministry.com. Again, that's leadministry.com. But today, we have a special guest with us today. His name is Vance Martin. Vance, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Josh. I mean, we just start right off the bat, and you're talking about a buffet. You're making me hungry over
That's
here, man.
right.
I'm glad that I just ate recently.
Okay, well, yes, we're talking today about sustaining momentum with your teams. And you know what? We got to give our teams some food, right? We got to feed them. We got to help them. And but before we go too much further, Vance, I do want you to tell us just a little bit about yourself and a little bit about what you do for a living.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. So I serve as the vice president of Next Gen at Slingshot Group. And essentially what we do is build remarkable teams through staffing and coaching. So we're
Yes.
constantly helping people that are looking for ministry roles connect with amazing cultures and churches and organizations and making that match there, and then also doing all kinds of coaching and helping leaders that are really either pioneering, they've plateaued, or they have a problem to solve, and we're stepping in and helping them shake things loose and create momentum.
That's exactly right. Well, Vance, you are a repeat guest here. You're a frequent flyer on the Lead Volunteers podcast and the Lead Ministry Live stuff. So we're very grateful. Big friendship with you, big friendship with what you do with Slingshot. I think of you guys as matchmakers, right? Somebody out there has ministry gifts and some church has ministry needs, and you help put those together. Beyond that, though, like you said, you guys help individuals in churches solve problems, right? If they've plateaued, how do you get over that? So part of that is sustaining momentum. So that's our topic today. So when we were kind of talking in the pre-interview, you mentioned that there are three things. Can you kind of walk us through those, Vance?
Yeah, absolutely. I think before I break out the three things, I think it
fair.
might be important just to say when we talk about momentum, what are we really talking about? And
Sure.
cultural momentum with our teams. And I think there's really two elements that I think about. One, it's about when Jesus looked at Peter and he said to Peter, "I will build my church." And what he was saying was, you are the rock that I'll build my church, but it's ecclesia, right? It's a movement, it's a gathering.
Yeah.
It's this group of people. It's not a place, it's a group of people that's going to accomplish great things for the kingdom. And so that's what we're called to do. We're called to be cultural architects that are guiding a movement.
Right.
And so when we talk about gaining and sustaining organizational team momentum, what we're really talking about is we have a kingdom movement that we're trying to go after. So the three elements are this: it's organizational clarity, personal accountability, and team innovation.
Okay. Say those one more time for us, please.
All right. Organizational clarity.
Organizational clarity.
Personal accountability.
Yes.
And team innovation.
Okay, so just do a flyby over the top of each three of those before we do a deep dive, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. So organizational clarity is really answering the question: who, what, where, when, how, but most of all, why. This is the compass point. This is, in every organization, you better have that true north, the North Star, that no matter what fog has set in, we know the North Star, this is where we're going.
And
this is who we're called to do it.
Everybody on the team.
Absolutely. And when everybody has that North Star, it doesn't matter where you're at on the globe, you can see the North Star,
Sure.
right? So we might be at different places, different elevations, but there's a constant that we can look towards. We can that
Right.
point us in the right direction.
Now, interestingly enough, this ecclesia, this idea of a movement, the church movement, it has local manifestations, right? And so there is the big
Yeah,
picture
absolutely.
kingdom, and then there is a local manifestation of that big picture ecclesia, this movement. And it often takes form as a local movement, right?
Yeah, one of the biggest frustrations that we see in churches that I'm experiencing, especially in, a lot of the leaders that you and I coach, that may be a
Yes.
children's pastor or a student pastor, is they have all these dreams and ideas and things that they want to do, but oftentimes there's a lack of clarity of where we're going as an organization. And when you don't have that, you can just spin your wheels. Like, where are we going?
Right.
We're all moving in different directions. So I may have clarity in my area, but it doesn't matter how what kind of wins I have over here in the children's ministry. If this isn't moving the whole ecclesia church and my expression in my city, moving forward to reaching that community, then I'm causing actually negative momentum.
That's right. Because in a sense, it's this idea of you want to get everybody that's on the canoe to row in the same direction, right?
Yeah, yeah. So and this is bigger than just the vision statement.
Of
I think
course.
when I think about what is organizational clarity,
Hmm.
it's having the tip of the iceberg and knowing what is that North Star, the thing that's driving us, but then that trickles down into the clarity of what is my role? What is my responsibility? What am I
Right.
supposed to do? Who's God called me to be? And what are the expectations you have on me as a leader? And then that trickles down to the team and leader
Yes.
that I have. But without that organizational clarity, we're left just kind of floating.
Yes.
There's
And we
not
can,
that.
with that float, we kind of can drift, whether to the right or whether to the left. And then all of a sudden you're pulling in different competitive, even competitive directions.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's organizational clarity. Personal accountability is the second one. And if you think about what we just talked about, right?
Yes.
The vision, the roles, the expectations. Well, if you think about this, these are directly connected to each other,
Yes.
because if I don't set expectations, or expectations aren't set for me, and I'm just left going on my own, well, the leaders above me, and then in extension, the leader that I am and the people that I'm leading, if there's not that clarity, there's not clear expectations, and therefore I cannot hold people accountable. So the level of clarity, organizational clarity, that you have is also the cap of personal accountability that you can have and that you can give to people. And when people are not meeting those expectations, you're forced to give an overextension of grace in every situation, because you didn't clarify, or there hasn't been set the parameters of expectations. So you can't hold people accountable to what you've given them, or the parameters to operate in, because there's no clarity, so that you can't hold people accountable. So it just becomes this amalgam
Not
of
good. That's
I'm
not
I'm
good.
just I'm just existing, or I'm going in my own direction. So the clarity gives the right for the personal accountability.
And it also gives the right for, like, once you finally know the rules of the game, you can be your own person within that. And it because
Oh,
it,
yeah.
it doesn't have to be this really bad leadership word of silos, right? To where one group has their own vision and their own. I mean, even so far as, like, I've been at churches before, and even the church that I was at for well over a decade. Interestingly enough, the youth ministry had their very own database that was not integrated with the big church. I mean, that's an easy example, but, like, that's disjointed, right? And that doesn't help
Yeah.
anybody.
Well, and I think I won't even say we. I'll just say me here, Josh.
Sure.
I don't like bringing accountability, right? I don't.
Right.
Nobody likes being I mean, well, maybe I'm gonna say nobody. I don't like being the bad guy. I don't like being, the person that has to bring the accountability or bring the correction. But the truth is,
Yeah.
people want to be led because people naturally want to achieve, they want to win, they want to
Yes.
please.
And
And so we should bring accountability as a coach, not a dictator. This
right.
is not about, handing down the edicts. This is about giving people the clarity of the rules and say, work within the rules and you have freedom to
Right.
do whatever you want, and to bring motivation and not manipulation. I think that's the difference in a coach and a dictator. A
Yeah.
coach wants to motivate people into the framework of accountability, and a dictator manipulates to build their own kingdom.
Right. And I think a dictator, Vance, doesn't allow for the 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 beautiful uniqueness of the body and how
Yeah.
like okay, so for instance, that's the North Star. These are the guardrails. You be you. Go
Yeah.
that direction. And I think that provides a lot of freedom because there's a difference between like dictating how we're going to do ministry and really disciple making, which allows people to be who they want to be. I mean, it sounds like dictating feels extremely constricting, and or even to the point where some leaders want to duplicate themselves. Well, if God would have wanted duplicates, he would have made us very, very, very similar, but he's made us very unique, right? And so if as long as we know the guardrails and we know that North Star, we should be given the freedom, am I right?
Yeah, I think what you're talking about too is the difference in a prescription and a description,
Speak it.
right? So a prescription is, this is the way. And I would say there are things
Yes.
in ministry, and this is the way, right? This is what, but there is so much more description. This is the direction.
Right.
It's stating the destination, allowing people to have a choose your own adventure. And often,
Yes.
what happens is God has created us so different that instead of having this, myopic, just what's the word when it homogeneous
Yes.
approach, when you are, as a leader, are confident. Because what happens, here's what you when you get a dictator, when somebody's not confident in their leadership, they slip into being dictator because they want to control. And so if you can step into, letting go and being that coach, what you will find is, flowers are beautiful, but a bouquet is exquisite.
That's right. A single flower is just one thing, but a bouquet is gorgeous. Now, the interesting thing, Vance, when we lead our very own teams, which are composed of maybe myself, maybe composed of a couple of staff people, but by and large, it's a whole bunch of volunteers, is it not?
Yeah, absolutely. And even more so, that we should give clear direction
Yes.
and say, hey, here, go run, and I'm going to
Right.
be cheering you on.
And what,
And
what what
so,
this isn't though is it isn't saying okay, now there are certain things to be dictated, right? Like hey, we're not going to hang signs with blue tape on the outside, right? That was a value of mine. That I'm dictating that.
yeah.
But how you deal with your small group and what kind of random props you bring in, or whether you everybody doesn't have to go to some kid's baseball game. There's other ways that you can connect. There's a ton of freedom, but there are certain things, like you said, that might be the way that it is. But those are usually low items, not the heart items, right?
Right. But it's having that clarity. And this is, again, this is all about personal accountability.
Right.
It's knowing the difference and saying, this is the freedom that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And then actually, if you want to have that sustained and gain momentum, you have to come in and continuously bump and bring clarity with that freedom. It doesn't mean that it's a hands-off
Sure.
approach, It means I'm completely engaged, and I'm looking and I'm saying, okay, people are going to be constantly moving towards the edges. They want to
For sure.
find out what the edge is. And so your job as the leader is not to dictate what to do, but the how many lanes of traffic you get to travel in. And when
Right.
somebody gets off of the lane, to say, oh, let's come back in. Remember, this is the lane that we're in. So personal accountability is huge.
Yes.
The final one is team innovation. So again, if you think about it, these are all interconnected. What happens when we have clarity and people know the direction, they're held accountable? What that then is that generates um, creativity, and
Yes.
people want to make something new to accomplish what's moving forward. So if you think about, again, if you give me a task, if you say, hey, this is the North Star and this is where that vision, that clarity
Yeah.
comes in, this is where we're going, I'm going to give you the clear parameters, let's go run. People begin to, as a team, collect, how can we better accomplish this goal?
Right.
What's the fastest way? What's the most efficient way? What's the most impactful way? And they begin to take your idea and your thoughts with that clarity, with the accountability. Then you begin to see where the bouquet begins to take shape, because
Right.
people are creating something you never even thought possible.
That's exactly right. And that even something as far as, let's say that you have a North Star that is relationally rich, right? I just came up with it on the fly, but this year we want to be relationally rich. Now, here's one of the boundaries here. Here's another boundary here, right? These are the boundaries. But then all of a sudden people are like, wow, well, what if we, that's when the what if we,
Yeah.
that's those things start coming about, right? But I think, would you agree that it's the leader who is often setting, now that others can help mold it, but the leader is sometimes the one who's setting that North Star? Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think there's some uh, benefit to creating an atmosphere where people have ownership
Yes.
of helping understand what that North Star is and shaping that. But I think it's more about in the journey there. And, because to me, there is this, where does the conviction come from of what we're called
Okay.
to do,
That
right?
is interesting.
Conviction to me is different than, this becomes, when the North Star, when you take all these three things together, the clarity, the accountability, the innovation, really what I think that then crystallizes and helps you gain organizational momentum is when it becomes not a belief that this is the direction that we're supposed to head. I think that's what belief says. I think conviction says, I know. And when
Yes.
now I have that conviction that's seated in my heart, this is something that says, I'm convinced, I have conviction, and I'm willing to sacrifice. I'm willing to give of my life and my time, because that
And
North
my
Star
and my
is
creativity.
worth it.
And my own creativity.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
so even even the North Star, it needs to be a collective ownership, not a singular ownership. It's not this guy's vision. It has to be a bigger ecclesia, our community heading there. And then people have deep, deep feelings that they want to spend their one and only life. That's where their creativity comes.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's talk about maybe a little bit when one of these elements is missing.
Yes.
Because I think often we're in organizations where we've had two or one of these elements,
Yes.
and it doesn't work. And so, when you have that organizational clarity piece that's missing,
Yes.
what happens is you become a renter and not an owner.
Right.
You don't have ownership of it, and it leads to, so if you've got all you have is accountability, and you've got innovation, right? What that leads to is legalism. That
Right.
leads to team frustration, where we don't know why we're doing this. This doesn't make any sense, but these are the rules, and this is what we're following. And people begin to get frustrated and they go, we've got to get out of this. Why are we're just spinning our wheels, and they're still trying to come up with ideas. I get the metaphor I would use is somebody that they're stuck in the ditch.
Right.
And they're innovating, they're coming up with ideas. How come we got to get a crane? We got to put traction on these wheels. So they're innovating, but there's just this constant frustration because the North Star is missing. And there's
Right.
accountability, and there's the police officer up on the side of the road going, you better get this car moved out of here. You're stopping traffic. And so there's this pressure, there's this accountability, there's this innovation, but there's no clear direction.
And it
And
doesn't
so
feel good.
people
And
can't own that.
people don't own it. And if they don't own it, they're going to be a very poor carrier of that vision. And I got to be honest with you, there have been times where I have been in a second or third chair, and I just did not fully understand the North Star, and then it became a dictate to me, and my best and brightest wasn't able to come forth. Maybe that's my
Yeah.
problem, but maybe it's also the problem of the leader. I don't know.
I think that's where leaders, I think biblically there's grounds to say that leaders are held to a different standard.
I would agree.
And I think that's part of the weight of the biblical Christian leader is to take the vision that God has given, the biblical mandate to make disciples, and to figure out what that expression in this context is, and to articulate that so that people can see it and be moved to that place of
Yes,
conviction.
absolutely.
So that's a frustrating place to be. The second one there is personal accountability, and so when that's missing, basically, that accountability is what leads to action. So when that's gone, where you get is basically an apathetic, myopic artist.
Yeah,
They may see the vision, but we're never going to get there. We'll do it tomorrow. There's no sense
nothing's
of
pressing.
urgency.
Right,
I'm just gonna sit over here and just create things, and it really doesn't have any purpose. We're not gonna do anything with it. We're just gonna come up with ideas and all these plans, and we never put things to action. We never take any steps
right,
in what we're doing. So it creates this culture of apathy. That
right.
why do anything? We come up with all
Why
these
put
great
my
ideas.
why put my best creative self? Because Vance, you and I have talked about this before. The human being, our being, is seeking to conserve calories. And all of a sudden,
Yeah.
if I was a part of an organization once, long, long, long time ago, and I put my absolute best and brightest forward, and I came home multiple days completely spent, only for that to be in a like 4-inch 3-ring binder that never saw the light of day. And I thought, now,
Yeah.
I don't know if that was a good expenditure if I came home tired, for what
Right.
end? And so
Absolutely.
we as leaders who are leading people, because watch this, I can't really do much of anything about those who are leading me. The best I can do
Absolutely.
is do my best with those unto whom I've been given responsibility to lead. And so what I'm hearing you say is
Absolutely.
clarity, give compelling vision, clarity, hold them accountable, and allow them, take off the bridle, just get the reins off of them and let them run free.
Yeah. Well, what happens in the heart that creates that apathy?
Yeah.
It happens over time. So what happens is a leader will innovate, and then will come up with, and they will present and give their idea. And if that idea is not properly stewarded,
Right.
or not put into action, or here's where it really gets dangerous, is they see somebody else on the team over here not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and
Right.
then they don't see you as the leader holding that person accountable. They go, that leader really doesn't care.
He doesn't care
That
about
leader
this
isn't
vision.
they don't care about the vision, and they're not a good steward of it. So I'm not going to entrust this leader with my best. I'm just going to do whatever it takes to get back. That's where the apathy comes from, is they look to the side because I've been there.
I have
I've
too.
done. I mean, I'm working hard. I'm doing this over here, but that, whatever other pastor over there, he shows up late for meetings. He doesn't, and nobody says anything to him. Why does nobody say anything to him?
Right.
Or if I don't, why is nobody saying anything to me?
Right.
So you get this. Well, if they don't care, then I
Maybe
can't care or
maybe I
shouldn't
shouldn't.
care.
Maybe I shouldn't. Because again, it comes down to this really like base level, like where are we going to spend ourselves? Now, Vance, as we kind of close this off, what kind of recommendations would you make to start this out? Like if you are a leader, because we sometimes we get handed what the North Star is, but we get to bring that down to our level. Help us in a very practical way as we close out.
Yeah. So I would find some people just individually that you trust. Those people on your team that are kind of the matriarch, the patriarch, the
The OG,
influential
the OG,
leaders of
yeah,
yes, those that have been around for a while. Probably it's good that this person may have a little bit of gray hair or at least an old soul, someone that you trust.
sure,
And I think you open up and have vulnerability and say, "Hey, I just want to ask you, do you see me holding people accountable? Do you feel like I'm a good steward?" And I think that's really good language to use as,
stewardship. I like that.
accountability. Yeah, stewardship. Am I stewarding our people and their time well? And
Hmm.
where do you see me not, doing that? And I think also asking people, just asking them, what do you think our vision is? Why do we exist? And the answer that you get back
It's going to be
will
very telling.
give you it's going to give you all the clarity that you need. If you're going, "Oh my gosh, that is not what," then that means you are not clearly
Yeah, I
communicating
would agree.
that vision. I think if you're also just take stock and think back, when's the last time that somebody brought you a great idea? Now, often these are ideas that we don't like. It's like, "Hey, I think we should start this whole new program to these,"
Right.
and so we often downplay that, but there's that's also a good sign that people are innovating. They're thinking
Yes.
about, okay, this is where we want to go. Maybe we could accomplish the mission if we did this thing or this program. And so don't often we squelch that. And
Shouldn't.
that's a great sign and redirect it towards, okay, this is where accountability and clarity, that's a great idea, but here's how we can make that fit
Yes.
our organizational movement better. And so think about, when's the last time that somebody had an idea? Doesn't even have to be a great idea. When's the last time somebody brought an idea? If they don't, then that's a good sign that people are not thinking and creating. They're just robot workers at that
And
point.
so there have been times where I, Vance, have actually gone with somebody's partially okay idea because I wanted to show good faith in allow. I see they're a great leader. They've got potential. They're coming with this idea that isn't exactly what I would want to do, but the bigger
Yeah.
picture in getting their involvement almost necessitated me wanting to take their idea. Let's run with this. Let's give this a little bit of rope here. So, well, Vance, this is great stuff. I think give it to us one more time. Those three things as we close out.
Yeah. So the three things to organizational movemental leader leadership and movement is organizational clarity, personal accountability, and team innovation.
So, the team innovation is really what we want. That's the end goal because then we have all this massive, beautiful buy-in from really creative people and the uniqueness of the body of Christ. But we have to
Yeah.
provide a direction and we have to provide some rules for the road. Am I right?
Absolutely. Nailed it.
Well, Vance, this is fantastic. I always love having you on with us today. Everybody, this has been Vance Martin. He's talking to us. Super cool about how to make sure you can sustain momentum. And of course, momentum is once the ball is rolling, how do you keep it rolling? But how do you keep it rolling in the right direction? Well, gang, this has been the Lead Volunteers podcast. We are super, super grateful that you have joined us today. We will be back, as always, next week with another great episode. Again, Lead Volunteers Podcast. Hey, if you would, like, subscribe, and tell a friend. Thank you, guys.